talking Carolina baseball on this Monday. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Coach Mark Kingston joining us now as he does every Monday here right around 3:30. Always appreciate his time. Mark, you've had a day to process all of this. I know Saturday was a gut punch after a difficult Thursday and Friday. I'm not going to ask you how you've reassessed anything right now, but with a day to comprehend what happened, how have you and your ball club responded to this in terms of trying to flush it, knowing at the same time that that's easier said than done?
Well, you have no choice. You flush it. You understand the big picture. We've had some great weekends, and obviously this was our low point of the year. And so you've got to handle it properly. You've got to move on, and you've got to focus on Tennessee. You don't belabor the point that we didn't play as well as we wanted. You learn the things that you need to learn. You make the adjustments you need to make, and you focus on Tennessee and keep the train moving. That's all you can do.
You mentioned, and I'll quote you, you said Georgia played their ass off and we didn't, and you also noted that the Bulldogs maybe are the best offense that you've seen this season. So there's that about how well you thought Georgia played. But I am curious as to how you and Coach Williams have been, I don't want to ask you more privately assessing your pitching staff, but have you seen chinks in the armor? Have you seen some of the things that led to Georgia being so explosive against your pitchers?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to find predictability within our pitching staff, and we've got a lot of guys that are very capable and have had great moments. We're just looking for the guys that will be the most predictable, where we know generally what we're going to get when they go out there. We've been a little inconsistent, and because of that, we've had to change roles of guys. We're trying to find who fits best where, and we're just continuing to look for the guys to really take hold of a role when they get the opportunity. And as I said, I think many of them have the ability to do it. We just need to continue to work to get there. But yeah, that was the best offense we've seen all year, from top to bottom, power-wise. They didn't run, they don't bunt, they just get in there and they bang. And they did it all weekend, and I didn't expect us to give up that many runs. I expected us to give up some runs because they score on everybody, and they've done that to most teams. But I just didn't expect it to get to that point. And then especially in Game 3, when we're up by 2 going to the 8th inning, I felt really good that game was going to be won by us. And, it's just we didn't pitch well in the last couple innings, and they finished strong. So their RPI is number 2 in the country right now. It's one of the best teams in the country, but I still hold out hope that we are as well. And we just got to keep looking for that winning form.
And speaking of, the pitching staff, you can't help but notice exactly how well Garrett pitched out from a starting role, going 5 1/3 and striking out 7, only walking 1, and only giving up two earned. I thought he pitched really well in that role, and I know that's something that you guys have considered for a little bit, but have kept him in the bullpen because that's how I guess Matt felt that he pitched best out of. But it does kind of feel like he's your best pitcher right now. Is this a role that you see him sticking with moving forward in terms of continuing to start and maybe try to get you deeper into ball games?
There's no question that him and Ty Good, I think, have been our best and most consistent 2 pitchers. Though the key is, okay, if he starts, then who's going to finish the game? Or if one guy finishes the game, who's going to start? And that's been our challenge. Gainey has helped us win so many games in the role he was in. He pitched in a manner Saturday, that allowed us to win that game too. So we have to just figure out what is the best combination of 9 innings for us to get a W. And as we look into the Tennessee weekend, that we're going to approach that one way. But then as we look into the future, into the NCAA tournament, you've got to win 3 games on a weekend, and we're going to attack all the different ways that we might be able to approach winning 3 games on a weekend for the regional. So there's no question he pitched like a dominant starter the other day. And that's what I thought would happen, and it did. So we've got to gain enough confidence that if he does go to that starting role, we're going to have guys that can slam the door shut once he hands the ball to us with a lead.
Talking to Coach Mark Kingston on this Monday. Jay and Elijah with you. Carolina will be at Tennessee this weekend to close out the regular season. Thursday and Friday, 6:30 starts Saturday afternoon from Knoxville. You told us last week that Dylan Eskew might have had a little soreness in Columbia, Missouri, and maybe he's just not giving you what you want. Roman Campbell, obviously coming off surgery a couple years ago, trying to work his way back. In your opinion, you've been around this sport a long time, how much of this is fatigue? How much of this is ability? And how do you and Matt try? I mean, you mentioned earlier you're trying to find those roles, but it's one thing that for a guy that doesn't have ability. It's one when a guy does have ability and he's struggling with confidence. Where are those fine lines for you guys, especially this late in the season?
Yeah, I think those two guys have the ability to pitch in the roles that we've asked them to do. Again, SQ shut out Kentucky a couple weeks ago, and they're the number one ranked team in the country from an RPI standpoint. So he's more than capable of getting us 6 outs like we asked him to do the other day. He got us many more than that when he shut out Kentucky, and we just thought, okay, let's give him the ball, let him get his 6 outs, assume he'll pitch like he did in that Kentucky series, and it just didn't work out. Doesn't mean it won't work out the next time, but again, we're trying to figure out where our guy's most comfortable. Maybe he's more comfortable early in the game rather than late, and everybody's personality leads itself to some guys like the middle, some guys like the beginning, some guys like the end. Some guys are so talented that you can pitch them anywhere and they'll do great. So it's a combination of all those things, but I think, again, we've got to get those guys comfortable in whatever role they are so that we get the best out of them.
Talking with Coach Mark Kingston, and Mark, batting wise, you guys still were able to put up enough runs that would normally win you some games in the SEC. So, averaging 7 runs a game in a weekend series in this conference would still put you in the upper half in terms of offensive production. And I guess when the pitching's struggling like it has, it can put a lot of pressure and strain on your hitting lineup. But how do you think your lineup has been able to handle that pressure here in these last few games?
No, the offense over the last month has been very good. There's no question about that. We averaged 7 runs a game, as you mentioned, this weekend. That's plenty good enough to win games if we're pitching the way we normally do. And so I'm pleased with where the offense has come. I think it's one of the better offenses around now as it's currently constructed. And I still think it can get better with some more consistency from a few guys. But I think the offense is doing more than enough. And again, early in the year, the pitchers were pulling their weight, and as we were waiting for the offense to come around, and now it's a little bit of a flip of that. But at the end of the day, when we lace them up to play in the NCAA tournament, you hope that they're both really at the top of their game, and that's what we're targeting.
You got Will Tippett back into a couple of games this weekend, so he's feeling better. What does that do in terms of maybe how you practice this week? You guys will leave on Wednesday to start a Thursday through Saturday series, so still fluid there, or will you go back? You made that trade-off of defense for offense. How's that looking right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jay. I mean, it's something we're evaluating. Obviously, when LeCroy was in there at short, he made all the routine plays, and generally is going to give us pretty consistent at bats. Although he's been struggling some lately, but I always hold out hope and think positive that our guys will reach their best form. Tippett has more range at shortstop defensively, so you just have to. You have to balance which one are you looking for on any given day. Do you want more range on defense? Do you want more quality at bats? Because both of those guys bring different things to the table. So, we'll evaluate who we're pitching in terms of how many ground balls we may get on a given day, or are we throwing a fly ball pitcher? We'll evaluate who we're facing from the other team, and is it a fly ball team, a ground ball team? So we'll factor in all those things. I think the other 8 guys are pretty consistent in the fact that they need to be in the lineup with the way they're swinging the bats. So that position right there is something we'll continue to evaluate. But again, they both bring different things to the table, and it's just which do we think is more important on that day.
When do you think you and Coach Williams decide on who goes when this weekend from a starting rotation standpoint?
Well, we already started to talk about it this morning because, again, how they throw throughout the course of the week has a lot to do with when they pitch on the weekend. So we already discussed that this morning. I would guess we'll make it public, probably Wednesday on our way to Tennessee. But that'll be here soon enough.
And lastly, real quick, is there any conversation at all amongst the team, that's staff, players, about the hosting situation or that's taken a hit, if nothing else, this past weekend? Or is it something that's a known that isn't spoken of?
You know, obviously the guys follow everything just like everybody else does. They know that we were within the top 16 of the RPI, which means you're going to host, and now we're just outside the top 16 of the RPI. So, I mean, guys aren't stupid. They follow things. They know. You don't need to talk about it. I mean, everybody, at the end of the day, everybody's job is to work hard and try to win the next game. And if you do that enough, then you get to host. And if you don't, then you don't. It's pretty much that simple.
Coach, safe travels this weekend. Best of luck. We'll talk to you next week ahead of the tournament. Always appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. That is Gamecock head baseball coach Mark Kingston. We'll assess a lot of what Mark had to say when the postgame show continues.